Imagine discovering that the underground prison you have called home for generations was never actually built to be a prison. It was built to save humanity. But then you discover something even worse. The people who built it also created a system capable of killing everyone inside it. And now Juliette Nichols has discovered how that system works. The problem, she may have just been captured before she can stop it. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're breaking down Silo Season 3, Episode 8, Grey Goo, from beginning to end. This episode finally answers some of the biggest questions of Season 3, especially what happened to the world, why the silos were constructed, what the mysterious safeguard really does, and how Silo 1 can potentially destroy another silo. But the episode doesn't simply give us answers. It gives us answers that create even bigger questions. So let's go back to the beginning, because what happens in this episode changes the entire story of Silo. The episode opens where the previous chapter left us. Outside, the world is still a toxic wasteland, and two men who were supposedly dead are desperately trying to survive. Lucas and Kennedy are alive. They've managed to escape the mysterious attack that nearly killed them while traveling towards Silo 17, but they aren't exactly in good shape. Lucas has been shot. Kennedy is carrying him, and between them and safety is a dead, hostile world that humans haven't been able to survive in for generations. Then finally, they reach the entrance to Silo 17. They bang on the door. Nobody knows whether they can be trusted. Weapons are pointed at them. But when the residents hear Juliette's name, the door opens, and the two men are pulled inside. For Lucas, this is more than simply finding shelter. This is their second chance. Because their original mission hasn't changed, they were sent to Silo 17 to answer one question. How did this silo survive the safeguard? Remember, Silo 18 is facing a terrifying threat. A chemical has entered the water supply. People are beginning to lose their memories. And if the resistance can't stop Silo 1's safeguard system, the entire population of Silo 18 could eventually be wiped out. Juliette had considered a desperate alternative, destroying part of Judicial to reach the system. But that plan could kill hundreds or even thousands of innocent people, so Silo 17 may be their only hope. And Kennedy gets straight to work. Jimmy helps repair the radio. Soon, Kennedy is back in contact with Juliette and Martha. But he doesn't simply tell them that they're alive. He communicates carefully, in code, and he gives them the information they desperately need. Silo 17 found a way to stop the safeguard. But how? That's the mystery, and the answer is hidden behind a door nobody wanted to open. Kennedy and Lucas search through Silo 17. Eventually, they find something strange. A door. It appears to have been welded shut from the inside. Think about that for a moment. Someone was trapped in there, and whoever did it didn't want the door opened again. Kennedy and Lucas force their way inside, and then they find a body. It's Jimmy's mother. She's still wearing her cleaning suit. She didn't simply die inside this room. She appears to have deliberately sealed herself in. And now the question becomes, why? Kennedy needs to examine what she was doing, but Jimmy doesn't want his mother's body moved. For him, this isn't a puzzle. It's his mother. So Kennedy has to do something unexpected. He talks to Jimmy. He explains that understanding what his mother did isn't disrespecting her. It's the opposite. It could prove that she died trying to save everyone. Eventually, Jimmy agrees, and the investigation reveals the horrifying truth. Jimmy's mother had been trying to stop the safeguard poison from spreading. She had discovered the pipe. She tried to seal it, and she ultimately sacrificed herself to protect the people of Silo 17. Her death wasn't meaningless. She had been fighting the system, and now Kennedy finally understands how she did it. The information is sent back to Silo 18, and suddenly, Juliette has a real plan. Not a bombing, not a suicide mission, not the destruction of Judicial, a surgical strike against the system itself. But while Juliette is getting closer to victory, someone else is getting closer to her. Camille. Camille has become one of the most dangerous people inside Silo 18, and she's not working alone. The algorithm is demanding answers. It wants to know why Juliette sent Lucas and Kennedy to Silo 17. What are they looking for? What did they find? And what is Juliette planning? Camille goes to Robert Sims. She wants information, but Robert refuses to give it to her. He knows that whatever Juliette is planning could determine the fate of the entire silo, and he isn't willing to betray her. That creates a fascinating conflict, because Robert has spent much of the story on the opposite side of Juliette. Yet now, even he understands that something is fundamentally wrong with the system, and Camille becomes increasingly desperate. She needs to know what Juliette is doing, because if Juliette succeeds, Silo 1 could lose its greatest weapon. the ability to threaten an entire population. Then comes one of the biggest character developments of the episode. Bernard is changing. For years, Bernard believed the rules existed for a reason. He believed the system had to be protected, even when that meant making brutal decisions. Now he is beginning to see the truth differently. Bernard studies the information from Silo 17, and he begins working with Juliette to understand how the safeguard pipes are connected. The silos aren't isolated. They are connected through a larger network, and somewhere at the center of that network is Silo 1. Bernard believed the pipes branch outward in clusters, which means that if they can locate the correct pipe and cap it, they may be able to prevent Silo 1 from pumping the poison into Silo 18. But Bernard doesn't just want to stop the attack. He wants to test Silo 1. His idea is incredibly dangerous. Cap the pipe, then wait. If Silo 1 contacts them and explains why the safeguard is necessary, maybe they can listen. Maybe there is a reason. Maybe the people controlling the silos really do believe they're protecting humanity. But if they can't explain themselves, then Silo 18 will know something important. The safeguard isn't protection, it's control. And Bernard finally admits something that completely changes how we see him. He admits that he killed Judge Meadows because he believed he was following the will of the system. At the time, he thought obedience was necessary. Now, he isn't so sure. And that brings Bernard and Juliette to the same question. A question that has haunted the entire series. Who gave Silo 1 the right to decide whether everyone else lives or dies? While all of this is happening, Knox is following another trail. The murder of Orla Kent. Knox has spent much of the season trying to understand what happened, and now he finally finds his father, Gus. The reunion isn't exactly emotional. Knox isn't happy to discover that his father is alive, but he needs answers, and he gets them. Gus admits that he helped Harwood create a secret transportation system. The system allowed supplies to be moved and hidden from official records. Things like light bulbs and other critical materials were being stockpiled. But why? Harwood believed the silo was heading towards unrest. He wanted to protect supplies and maintain order. He thought he was saving the silo. But then Orla discovered what was happening, and that's where everything went wrong. Orla had seen the hidden supplies, and she became a liability. But here's the twist. Gus wasn't the one who killed her. The actual killer was Mike. So another major mystery that has been hanging over the season finally gets an answer. Orla wasn't simply a random victim. She was killed because she stumbled onto a secret operation designed to protect the silo from what their leaders believed was coming. And once again, Silo gives us the same theme. People doing terrible things, while convincing themselves they're doing them for the greater good. Now we leave the underground world of Silo 18, and we go back, way back, to the before times. This is where Episode 8 finally delivers one of its biggest revelations. Daniel and Helen are with Per Stensen, and in the distance, something enormous is happening. A gigantic machine is drilling deep into the earth. Daniel is stunned. This isn't a normal construction project. It's massive. And Stensen explains what they're building. Silos. Not one, not two, 50. Stensen's operation involves 10 giant drilling machines, with each machine intended to excavate 5 silos. Daniel immediately sees a more efficient solution. Instead of moving the machines from site to site, why not build enough machines to leave one behind in each silo? And suddenly, those gigantic machines buried beneath the silos make perfect sense. They aren't just relics. They're part of the original construction. But now comes the most important question. Why build them at all? Stensen explains. Humanity is facing extinction, not in some distant theoretical future. He believes civilization is genuinely vulnerable. Nuclear war, pandemics, artificial intelligence, climate disasters. And then he identifies the threat that scares him most, nanotechnology. And this is where the title of the episode suddenly becomes terrifying. Gray goo refers to a hypothetical scenario involving self-replicating nanotechnology, tiny machines, almost impossible to see, potentially capable of spreading and destroying matter on a massive scale. And now Silo connects that concept to what happened to the world. Stensen reveals that Iran had developed a dangerous nanotechnology program, and Charlotte's disastrous mission from earlier in the season suddenly makes much more sense. Charlotte and her squadron believed they were being sent to attack a facility, but that wasn't the real mission. They were bait. The operation was designed to provoke Iran into revealing its nanoweapon, and when the squadron entered the cloud, the weapon took control of their aircraft and caused them to crash. At the same time, another team had spent years secretly digging a tunnel beneath the Iranian facility. The moment Charlotte's squadron was attacked, the facility was destroyed with a nuclear weapon. Think about the horror of that revelation. Charlotte wasn't simply caught in a war. She was part of a plan where her survival was never the priority. Her squadron was expendable. They were used to trigger the weapon, and the people running the operation already had their real attack prepared. The premiere suddenly looks completely different. What we thought was a military disaster was actually a calculated operation. Stensen believes humanity needs a backup plan. His answer? 50 underground worlds, each one capable of preserving enough people and knowledge to eventually repopulate the Earth. The silos are essentially civilization's emergency hard drive. If the world above dies, humanity survives below. It's a powerful idea, but Helen isn't impressed. In fact, she's furious. She looks at Stensen's enormous wealth and asks the obvious question. Why spend all this money preparing for the end of the world? Why not use that money to solve problems that exist right now? Homelessness, disease, poverty, human suffering. Stensen disagrees. He believes none of those problems matter if humanity itself disappears. And then he offers Helen and Daniel positions in the project. Daniel could help manage logistics. Helen could work in journalism and control how information is eventually released. It's an incredible opportunity, but Helen refuses. She doesn't want to become part of the lie. Charlotte, however, chooses the opposite path. She's willing to stay. And now Daniel has a choice: stay with the project or leave with Helen. He chooses Helen. He walks away from the project. And then something happens that gives the entire flashback a surprisingly emotional ending. Daniel and Helen kiss. After everything they've discovered, they choose each other. But there's still a disturbing question. If Daniel and Helen walk away, who continues building the silos? And how much of the project have they already helped create? Back in the present, Juliette now has the information she needs. She knows what happened in Silo 17. She understands the safeguard pipe, and Bernard has mapped the network. Now they need to find the matching location in Silo 18. The plan is delicate. They can't simply attack Judicial. They need to reach the pipe without alerting Camille. So Shirley and the others prepare a cover operation. They'll use legitimate repair work as camouflage, drilling, moving equipment, making it look like routine maintenance. Then, underneath all that noise, they'll reach the safeguard pipe, cap it, seal it, and hopefully cut Silo 1 from its ability to destroy Silo 18. It sounds simple, but nothing in Silo is ever simple. Shirley begins moving toward the location, but then Juliette realizes something is wrong. Because of the way the silo's infrastructure is arranged, they're approaching the wrong section. The entire operation could fail. Juliette rushes to catch up, and then the worst possible thing happens. Sandy gets caught. The cover is compromised. Judicial knows something is happening. The walls are closing in. Juliette understands what this means. If she keeps running, everyone could be caught. If she fights back, the entire safeguard operation could collapse. So Juliette makes an impossible decision. She stops running, and she surrenders. At first, this looks like defeat, but it isn't. It's a sacrifice. Juliette knows Camille sees her as the biggest threat, so if Judicial captures Juliette, they'll focus their attention on her. And while they're doing that, Shirley and the others might still have a chance to reach the pipe. She's giving them time. She's giving them freedom. She's putting herself on the chessboard as a distraction. And it works. For now. Juliette is taken into custody, and then she enters a cell. But she isn't alone. Inside is Robert Sims, the same man who has been at the center of so much of the conflict. Camille has also imprisoned him because he refuses to reveal what he knows about Juliette's plan. Now, the two enemies are sitting in the same cell, and that's where the episode leaves them. Juliette has lost her freedom, but her plan hasn't necessarily failed. In fact, the people outside still have the information from Silo 17. Bernard is on their side. Shirley is still free. The safeguard pipe can still be reached. So Juliette's arrest may actually be the beginning of the final stage of the plan. Now let's step back and look at what Episode 8 really tells us. First, the silos were not originally designed as prisons. They were designed as humanity's survival system. Stensen genuinely believed civilization might collapse. Second, nanotechnology is now directly connected to the apocalypse mystery. The gray cloud that destroyed Charlotte's squadron was tied to a weaponized nanotechnology program. The show still hasn't confirmed every detail of exactly how the outside world became uninhabitable, but the connection is now impossible to ignore. Third, Silo 1 has enormous power. It can potentially distribute poison to other silos, and for generations, people inside those silos may never even have known that such a system existed. Fourth, Bernard has finally broken with the system he once protected. That's huge.
Because Bernard isn't simply helping Juliette, he's questioning the entire philosophy that allowed the silo system to exist. And finally, Juliette is willing to sacrifice herself. She doesn't know whether the others will succeed. She doesn't know whether she'll escape. She doesn't even know if the safeguard can ultimately be stopped, but she chooses to give the others a chance. And there's still one giant question sitting in the background. If Stensen's project involves 50 silos, why have we heard about 51? Episode 8 doesn't solve that mystery. And that could be extremely important. Because if there really is a 51st silo, where is it? Who lives there? Who controls it? And why has it been hidden? Maybe it's simply an unexplained detail. Or maybe it's the missing piece of the entire puzzle. Because remember, Silo loves hiding the most important information in the places nobody thinks to look. So, was Juliette defeated? Not necessarily. In fact, I think the ending works because Juliette's greatest strength has never been her ability to overpower people. It's her ability to make sacrifices. She understands that one person can sometimes become more valuable as a distraction than as a fighter. By surrendering, she removes herself from the immediate operation, but she also removes the biggest target from Shirley and the others. And now the question becomes, can they finish what Juliette started without her? Because if they can cap that pipe, Silo 18 may finally have something it has never had before. Leverage. For the first time, Silo 1 may not be able to threaten them with instant destruction, and that could force the people behind the system to finally talk. But if the plan fails, the safeguard remains, and thousands of people could pay the price. So, let's put everything together. In the past, humanity becomes terrified of technologies powerful enough to destroy civilization. Per Stensen decides that the only solution is to build underground refuges. 50 silos, 50 chances for humanity to survive. But over time, those refuges become controlled societies. The people inside are given rules. They are denied history. They are prevented from knowing what exists outside. And most disturbingly, their own survival can apparently be controlled by someone else. In the present, Juliette finally discovers the weakness in that system. Silo 17 has already demonstrated that the safeguard pipe can be stopped. Now Silo 18 has a chance to do the same. But before Juliette can complete the operation, Judicial catches up with her. And instead of fighting until everyone is captured, Juliette gives herself up. She sacrifices her freedom so the mission can continue. And then the screen leaves us with Juliette and Robert Sims behind bars. But outside that cell, Shirley and the others are still fighting. Bernard is on their side. Lucas and Kennedy have uncovered the secret. Jimmy has learned the truth about his mother's final act. And Silo 18 is closer than ever to challenging the power that has controlled it for generations. And that is what makes Grey Goo such an important episode. The biggest revelation isn't simply that nanotechnology may have destroyed the world. It's that the people who built the silos may have started with a noble goal: save humanity. But somewhere along the way, saving humanity became controlling humanity. And now Juliette is fighting to reverse that. The silos were built to protect people from the end of the world.